Welcome everyone. We're back with Silo. This is the last two episodes 8 and 9. They're called Hannah and the Getaway. So we'll dig into it. Obviously, I've not been super enthusiastic, one might say, about the show. Basically, since episode 4, I've been pretty down on it. And, I'll cut to the chase. Those feelings have not really changed since these two episodes, I will say. So if you're someone who doesn't want to hear me tell you why I don't like the show that much, then by all means, this is your chance to opt out. It's, as always, or at least since episode 4, I've had this frustration with the show where it feels like it's just dangling things on a string without anything meaningful really there to tide you over in the meantime. I was especially episode 8, I was really noticing just how every single scene almost was just the same setup with two characters, shot, reverse shot, over and over again, as they talk about something. But never really getting to any meat or anything that's new to us, the audience, or, in fact, at one moment, Billings was with his wife, and they're talking about what's going on, and she drops an interesting tidbit about how people are saying that Juliet's trying to start a new revolution, and I would expect that's kind of ultimately where we might end up going on some level, that she might end up being the leader of a revolution because of everything she finds out in the silo. But I couldn't help but feel kind of weird that the first time we hear it phrased that way or brought up was in this relatively minor conversation between her and Billings, because this is one of those cases where you should show and not tell as much as you possibly can, and this show is very guilty of doing a lot of telling and not a lot of showing, and even then the telling by and large doesn't tell us a whole lot sometimes. But I couldn't help but feel this is again another example of something that we should maybe see forming in front of us, instead of just hearing someone say it, before it ever actually becomes something that the character's actually doing. Because the other big frustration I had with these two episodes is that we end episode 9 with Juliet finally getting a good look at the hard drive. I was actually really worried that all we were going to get was George talking to her in the video diary clip. I was concerned when we started getting that a second time that that's all we were going to get, and I was like, are you serious? This can't be it. It can't be all they do. But then I was frustrated in another way, because what they actually show after that was the same thing we saw back in episode 1. Maybe we saw more of a reflection of it back in episode 1, but it was nothing new to us. It was nothing that game-changing. Obviously, it's game-changing for these characters, Juliet and the two guys she's with, to see this, but it's nothing for us really that's all that exciting. And I think I came to this realization as the video diary was playing and George was talking about the door he was looking for and how the water's not that big of a problem and how she might be able to get through it in a way that he couldn't for whatever reason, probably with her engineering skills. All I could think was, okay, that probably means that the end of the season, the final episode that's coming later this week, is probably going to end with that door in some capacity. Maybe it won't. Maybe they'll blue balls everyone even more and not even get that far. But I suspect the ending might be something to do with opening that door and maybe teasing. At the very least, we'll get a reaction from someone, Juliet probably, of what is there on the other side. Maybe you'll get a little tease of what it is. Maybe you'll see it outright. But that'll probably be the ending. That'll probably be the cliffhanger for the season. I could be completely wrong, but that was what my mind jumped to as soon as they started talking about that again. And I think I started thinking about how that was everything they're talking about paying off is entirely from the first two episodes. And it got me thinking about how much have we actually done or achieved since then. Really, stop and think about it. How much have we really done since episode 3 in terms of actually expanding the world or expanding what's going on or expanding, it's all just been kind of going in circles. Yes, the old woman was a part of a group that wanted to save everything. Yes, we know more about the janitors and what Sims does, but it doesn't really feel that substantial. If you go back to episode 1 and 2, It felt like it was so dense with all these things it was dropping and all these ideas that it was dropping about the place. And then it felt like it grinded to a halt, and we're basically spending the entire season building up to the thing that we're already pretty much at in episode 2. And that's pretty frustrating. And it wouldn't be a big deal. There's nothing wrong with setting something up in the first couple of episodes and paying it off at the end of the season. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is that for that to work, I have to care about what's going on in the meantime with the characters. I have to be connected to the characters. And, you know, one of the things we've talked about is how I've not really felt anything for most of the characters that have remained on the show. All the interesting ones, maybe because their stories were all condensed into a nice package and they were, you know, they were done. Like, there was no time wasting with them, because it was like, we got Rashida Jones for an episode. She's got an important part to play. She's in. We have to go through all the beats, and then she's out. Okay, that's fine. But it's left me with, like, not only did I complain about the red tape feeling of just there always being these obstacles that aren't that interesting, but on top of that, like, the things we're trying to uncover for most of the season that have been the focus for the last several episodes, especially these 2 that I'm talking about today, was getting to that hard drive and seeing what's on it. And I can't help but feel that we've spent most of the season just watching a new set of less interesting characters trying to uncover the stuff that we already saw being covered in the first 2 episodes. And it leaves me completely and utter underwhelmed by everything. So, needless to say, I did not really enjoy these 2 episodes all that much. And even when I thought they might do something interesting just from like an action perspective, they somehow like circumvented it in less interesting ways, I guess. I mean, the main thing is at the end of episode 8, which is the cliffhanger between these 2 episodes, was Juliet being caught. Tim Robbins turns out to be the real bad guy, which, you know, shocking absolutely no one on the planet. And they basically are just going to say she said she wanted to go outside, and they're going to throw her outside. You know, they're going to. It reminded me a lot, and there's almost an interesting parallel here if they wanted to like dig into this. I don't really think they were, but you could compare this to Salem witch trials and how all it takes is a couple of people saying something, and that's it. She's got a death sentence. Like, there's some interesting parallels there if you wanted to actually look into that. But you know, she jumps over the railing, but it's, you know, above where the walkway in the previous floor is, so she kind of lands on that, and that's where we pick up episode 9 from. Like, everything from there, I was thinking, oh, okay, we've set up this obstacle now where she needs to break into this hard drive. She doesn't know how to do that. She has a tech friend on the bottom floor, right? She has the old lady that she likes to go to. And I'm like, okay, so she's trying to get there. It sets up that she's trying to go there, but there's these checkpoints. You know, there's the bad guys are policing every floor, and they're checking bags and stuff before people will be let through. So it's like, okay, that sets up fundamentally a very simple but interesting problem that could be there to solve, which is, how do you sneak something down these floors if you can't just go down the stairs? Is there a way to do it? And immediately I was like, oh, this could be fun. There could be some fun problem solving with this. Instead, the first thing she does is send a message to the guy that wants to kiss her from the cafeteria. Lucas, I think his name is. Let me just check. Yeah, Lucas. And he comes to say to her, and we get yet another scene of 2 people in a room. You know, they're watching us. You have to see this. It's a hard drive. Oh, you can't be showing me that. That's illegal material. It's the same goddamn conversation that we seem to keep happening over and over again. So I wasn't excited by all this. I was just like, okay, we're repeating all these points. We're doing them all again. Okay, there you go. Which actually, before I go any further into that stuff, I should probably talk about probably a really good example of just how much I think this show has failed to make me care about a lot of these characters and their relationships. Actually, there's 2 good examples between these episodes. There's one in each, in fact, but the one I was bringing up here is episode 8. There's this scene where Juliet emotionally reconnects with her father because now she knows that because the cameras are everywhere, he never turned her mother in, which led to her suicide. You know, she always thought that he turned in her her magnifier, her makeshift telescope, or telescope? Yeah, telescope. Microscope. I knew I was getting it wrong. That's the word I was looking for. I was like, telescope's not right. That's not the right scope. I'm not expanding my scope. I need to shrink the scope. I need to rein the scope in a little bit. Microscope. Anyway, so you know, she gets the microscope smashed by Judicial, and it's a whole thing. And she always thought that her father turned her in and kind of effectively blamed him for her downward spiral from then on. And notably, the mother was trying to use this microscope to look for ways to solve health problems like the one that took Juliet's brother, and she's like experimenting on this rabbit and so on, right? So you understand the goal, why it means a lot to her, and all that stuff. So, but you know, so in present day, she goes to her father and confesses all this, and they have this like teary-eyed scene. The father starts talking about how why he kind of abandoned her, how he's always felt guilty about how he just threw himself into his work because there was too much to be around his wife and her after the first kid died. And, you know, it's just all this, you know, soppy stuff, and they end up hugging and crying, and I genuinely could not give a shit the entire time. I was so bored throughout this entire scene. I have not felt an iota of feelings for this pairing, for this father-daughter thing. It did nothing. Like the needle did not even nudge one little bit on the emotion meter. It like I felt nothing from it. So honestly, like I don't think either of these episodes is particularly good. I think episode 9 reveals a lot of like season long problems, as does 8. But I think 8 was the more tedious to actually sit through, just because so much of it was based on this, like, you know, character drama side that I do not think has been working or effective for most of the show at this point. So really did not enjoy that. Didn't get anything out of it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that episode, you know, it has Juliet arresting Sims as a way to try and deal with him for a little bit. Tries to use his, you know, she actually sees his files, which is what leads her to the revelations about her mother, and that leads her to her father. But by the end of the episode, of course, it's all come crumbling down, and she's been taken in. And then in episode 9, she's on the run. She's actually hiding. We don't get the title sequence in episode 9 for like 12 minutes because it waits until she reappears after she hides for a little while. She's like a ghost in this show at this point. She can just like Batman out of scenes and pop up somewhere else. And a lot of it's her trying to get into the hard drive, of course. We also have a lot of stuff with Sims and Tim Robbins. What's his name? Holland. Sims is meant to be the shadow that's training to take over for Holland, but he's not sure if he should, because he still cares about his wife and daughter, and he sent protective detail to them, which he was right to do, because it turns out Juliet went to his place and uses his computer, which will have the clearance to look into the hard drive. She doesn't get too far with that because they come and find her. So it's basically, once it's hooked up to a computer, they can search for it, and sure enough, they do. Tim Robbins seems to know exactly what the hard drive is because of number 18. He's got a little thing that lights up saying 18 on it. So 18 seemingly is going to be a very important number with some of this stuff. But it kind of basically all boils down to her going to like the black market guy from earlier in the season, and his very, very ginger friend. he was exceptionally ginger. He's more ginger than Connor is, which is saying something. And they help her look into the hard drive, and that's where we get like the rest of the message and the, you know, the cleaning from the person that shows the real world's okay, or at least seemingly okay. I still have my doubts, but I guess the other interesting possible thing in this episode is Billings. You know, he is frustrated that him having the shakes is what basically let Juliet get away, and he's looking to find stuff out. So much so that he's breaking the rules by going in and searching her place, even when he's been told that he's not supposed to. But he ends up finding the kid's travel book, the pictures in it, and he has his emotional scene looking through all this stuff. He ultimately burns it, but he does rip out a page first, which we catch him looking at again later on as well. I think this is the sort of thing that might have like felt like it was taking too much time doing, because we already had that great scene with her, with Juliet looking at the book, right? That was the end of an episode, and it had a lot of weight to it because it was quite important. This was the first time one of the characters was seeing these types of images of the ocean, of buildings, of whatever. And I do think that it didn't really need to show him like as many times looking at it. I think him just opening the book and getting the first reaction on his face, I think at that point you can cut away, because we've already done it with one character. So all we need to establish is that he's about to go through the same thing. What's interesting after that, of course, is how he's going to react to it or care about it. So maybe showing him burn the book is fine, but it did cut back to him multiple times when he's like turning the pages and he's looking at different things. I'm not so sure that if the first time you saw this book, if we saw the pages that had some like buildings in it, because it was actually like there was maybe an argument before that it might not have been Earth or something, I don't know, but like it was clearly, cities that we recognize in the book. So it is very much our Earth that is in there. So just, I mean, I didn't think it was a high chance that it wasn't, but it was just, it's worth mentioning, So, where do I want to go from here? I should probably mention that Sim's wife had a gun, which did stick out to me because I don't know if we've seen one yet, and if we have seen one, it's been few and far between. Maybe it's the sort of thing where there used to be more guns in the silo, but as time has went on, like making ammunition's just not that feasible, so they've become this very rare commodity or something. Although by all means, if I'm forgetting a big gun scene earlier on in the season, let me know. But I don't think any of the police officers have been carrying guns or anything like that. So yeah, well, what do I want to talk about? Not a lot, to be honest. Not a lot. Oh yeah, the other emotional scene that didn't mean anything to me. So when Juliet's watching the video and George is talking about how, yeah, I was there to use you because you knew everything, you're very smart and mechanical, blah blah blah. You're not mechanical, you know what I mean. But here's the thing, I fell in love with you, Juliet. And she starts, the tears coming down her eye, and holy shit, could I not care. I never cared about the romance between them, and I think if you go back to the early reviews, that was probably clear from the way I talked about their scenes, that I was never actually that interested or felt anything from their connection to each other. And this being like this prominent thing, it links up really well with that scene that I really didn't care about in like episode 5, 6, whenever it was. The episode where Juliet spoke to the other girlfriend, and she found out all this stuff that George was probably using her, and he was a bit of a cheat and whatever else, and that landed with a bit of a thud. So by extension, obviously, this was going to land with a thud. It's the sort of thing where this entire relationship pretty much has faltered because it's mostly been telling rather than showing. That's number one. But even when it has shown us stuff, I don't really... I think this is actually a direction problem, as well as a writing problem, but definitely a direction problem, is I think it really sticks out how much more stylish those first couple of episodes were. And I think one of the things that's really hurting this show is just how basic and simple it's shot by and large. Like, for every scene. Like, it's very much just typical shot, reverse shot, like I said at the start. So many scenes play out that way, but it's kind of lent itself to some of the romance scenes and stuff where it still just feels like we're it's got that awkward like staging thing where so blocking in a scene, right? When we talk about blocking in a scene, that's basically where the actors are moving during the scene. And there's so many times in this show where it feels like the two actors are just like firmly planted in one spot. and they're just going back and forth with each other with dialogue, and it's become more of a problem as the shows went on because it feels like we're talking about the same things over and over again, and that's just it's something that's become more grating, especially by these last couple episodes where it's just like I'm waiting for something to happen. I do not find the dialogue in any way to like you can create good stories through almost just dialogue. In fact, just it's not out yet. It'll be a couple of months before it's out. But I just recently talked about 12 Angry Men, which is entirely just 12 people in a room talking to each other. But it's riveting. It's beyond riveting. It's wonderful stuff. It has highs and lows. It has surprises and suspense, and every little like tech or reaction on someone's face reveals something about their prejudice or why they think the way they do or what their bias is. But so much of this show is characters who are trying to like just be mysterious or intimidating, and it gives us you get a little from them sometimes. You know, when Sim's with his family and he looks concerned because that may get in the way of his career that he clearly wants, or something like that. But for the most part, it's a lot more surface level, where it's like Tim Robbins is in this scene to be intimidating. When he's interviewing the Lucas guy, he's going to threaten him. He's going to pretend to be his friend for like 2 minutes, and then he's going to start threatening him with all these punishments to get what he wants. There's no nuance to it. There's no subtext to what he's talking about. There's nothing there. It's the same with you know, like the head of judicial that Juliet went to see a couple episodes ago. Like, you know, she goes there, she talks to her, it becomes clear that maybe she's scared of someone and that she's not actually in charge by the end of the scene. But it's not something that we as the audience can read from just her body language or how she delivers the lines or some really key choices of dialogue. It's something really obvious, right? It's, you know, it was a sentence like you know, they won't let you, or something like that. She said they, right? When she was talking about the group, right? The villains. And Juliet, since then, has been going, I don't think she's the one in charge. I think there's someone else. There's nothing for us as an audience to deduce on our own. It's just, you know, it's like walking into a room, holding up an apple and saying, this is an apple. I will now take a bite of the apple. There, I have taken a bite of the apple. There's nothing to that. Whereas you go into a room and there's an apple on a table, and there's a sign that says, do not eat the apple. And then the character looks at the apple. And you know they're thinking it. They're thinking, now I want to eat the apple. I've been told I can't eat the apple. Now I want to eat the apple. And there's some tension because they might eat the apple, and maybe they nudge close to it. Maybe they reach out their hand, and maybe they pull it back in the last. Like, this is a stupid example, right? I'm just trying to demonstrate how I feel this show is written, where it's just constantly spelling things out, and it feels like it's been written for the lowest common denominator, whilst also stretching it out as much as it possibly can. I have no problem with a slow burn, right? I really do not. I love something like Better Call Saul, where it takes its time and it takes entire scenes just to watch a character like enact a plan, and it'll do it in a way where you're sort of like thinking along with it. Okay, what is the plan? What's going on here? And it'll sort of click, and you'll start to understand it. Or where it's revealing character stuff because of how a character is intervening. Like, there's not a single wasted scene. Every dialogue, every single line of dialogue has a purpose. It's got a purpose to advance or enrich the characters or the story. And when I'm watching Silo, I feel like it repeats itself a lot. I feel like it doesn't really... For a show that is built around the mystery of what's going on, it feels like there's nothing under the hood, which is really, really weird, right? It doesn't feel like it's got anything actually going on other than just the actual mystery that it's like we're only allowed to have the mystery that they've specifically told us is a mystery. We're not allowed to have any other layers that they have not specifically put up a big neon sign saying there are layers here. And it is so painfully dull to watch as a result. And you're probably asking at this point, why am I even still watching or talking about it? Because a few people asked me to, okay? Some people asked me, even, and notably it was people who agreed with my criticisms who still wanted me to finish. It's another thing when people who like the show want me to finish, because I feel like, what's the point? You're just going to be mad at me for shitting on it. But at least if people are appreciating some of the criticisms I'm giving, then at least someone's getting something out of what I'm actually going to say. And at this point, like, it is pretty much all criticisms. There's very little in here that I enjoyed in these 2 episodes, if at all, if I'm honest. You know, it's one of these things where the problems kind of compound, and when it's as fundamental as how the show is written and directed, like, and if that's not going to get better, which it hasn't, then it's just going to keep feeling worse the longer it goes. So I got none. I got nothing else. There's one more episode. I'll see how the show ends. I'll give my overall thoughts on that in the season. Probably much quicker than I got to these 2 episodes, just because Black Mirror is done, which is why I was ignoring this show for about a week and a half. It was not high on the priority list, but here we are today. And look, if you enjoy the show, then great. By all means, I'm happy you enjoy it, but I do not. And I think at this point, I'm just going to straight up say this is a bad show. This is a bad TV show. It's dull. It doesn't know what it's got with its premise, and all it does seems to do is want to kill time. With characters that have nothing really going for them, and don't make any of what on paper should be compelling, all of it just feels like we're running in circles. So, nope, I'm good. I'll watch the finale out of commitment. I'll talk about it. But Silo is a bad show. And there's very little they could do to convince me. Even if the finale is great, even if I came out of the finale going, oh, that was a 10 out of 10, it doesn't make up for the previous 7 episodes being bad and dull. So let me know what you thought of these last couple episodes of Silo in the comments below. Maybe direct your hate mail there as well if you like. But that is me. Thank you once again for watching or listening. You can support all the content over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv and yeah, help keep it all coming. Some of it's positive, I swear. I love being positive about shows. I do. If they give me a show to be positive about, I'll happily be positive. But this is not one of them. It's a bit of a drought right now. Maybe that's the problem. So people are latching onto this because there's not a lot of other things to sink our teeth into. Anywho, thank you very much for watching. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?